Welcome, Hawk families. This presentation is geared towards our current juniors in the class of 2023. Our goal is to discuss some things for our students and families to start thinking about as we plan and as we roll closer to senior year. My name is Kim Klingon, and I'm one of the counselors here at Hebron. There are 8 counselors, and we're split by last name by the last start of our alphabet. Dr. Robinson is our college and career readiness counselor, and she's here with us tonight. And we also have a student access counselor, Ms. Valle, who works with our students for socio and emotional needs, but she is not with us tonight. A little bit of housekeeping as we get started. Please make sure that you are on mute. This presentation is being recorded and it will be posted on the counseling website tomorrow morning. The presentation slides, as well as a page with all of the links, will be posted on the Hebron Counseling website, and it is also going to be dropped in here in the chat. There is a lot of information, and I will talk about a lot of links and places to go and resources, and I found that it's a lot easier if you have one place where you can go to access all of that. Dr. Fields is also going to drop the presentation in the chat as well. And all of our counselors are available in the chat to answer questions as we go along. So if you have any questions, then please ask away in the chat, and somebody will be available to answer your questions. If your question has not been answered tonight, please feel free to reach out to your student's counselor or to Dr. Robinson as well, and we're more than happy to help you and your family as you move forward towards senior year. There will be a short survey at the end, and we would appreciate it if you would take a second to answer the survey. And again, we really appreciate your time as you come to visit with us tonight. This is a list of some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. We'll talk about testing the PSAT, EOCs, SAT, ACT, and the TSI, all that alphabet soup there. We'll talk a little bit about planning for senior coursework and registration information, how to begin the college search, how to start looking at college applications, a little bit of financial aid and scholarships, NCAA for our athletes, and we'll talk about military academies and the military. I would like to show you as we start a couple of websites that we will be discussing in the meeting, starting with the Hebron Counseling website. So at hhs.lisd.net, under Programs and Services, under Counseling, we have a wealth of information under the Counseling page. This first one that comes up is the Counselor's Buzz, and this is where the meeting notes and the YouTube video will be posted tomorrow morning. I'd also like to point out over here on the side, there's information for current juniors. This was emailed to all of our juniors at the beginning and junior families at the beginning of the school year, so it's a good reference to come back to. When we have our course selection information, it will be posted here, all the way down to some college and career information.
Are you trying to share your screen?
I'm sorry?
Are you trying to share your screen right now?
Yes, I am. Did it not share?
No,
okay.
We're not seeing it.
All right, great. Thank you. Let me come back to that here. Come on, screen. Come on back up. I'm sorry. There we go. Share Google Chrome. That's better. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is under hhs.lisd.net, under Programs and Services, under Counseling. Here is where you'll be able to see the posting tomorrow morning. So to come back and see the video will be on here. Here on the left-hand side is information for current juniors. This was the information that we had emailed to all of our juniors and families at the beginning of the school year. It has a lot of the things we'll cover tonight, and it's a good little 2-page reference to go back to also. And anything that the counseling department provides to our students and families, information can be found on this page throughout the year. So this is a good place to come back to and see as you need to access the counseling office at any point in time. Also, and whenever Dr. Fields sends the link to all of the links, this junior senior handbook is another good reference for our families. It says 2021 on here right now, and that's because the district provides this usually around this time of year, but we wanted to make sure we had our junior meeting a little bit early. So as soon as a new handbook is updated, we'll send that information out to everybody. The information stays pretty much the same every school year, and this is great. It has information for college costs, how to find college information, a little bit of dual credit, some military information, SAT, ACT, financial aid. It's a good reference in planning for our families as you're looking for planning for the future. We also have...
Ms. Klingon, sorry to interrupt. I have the links posted for the presentation and
Okay.
the links and the counseling department website for anybody that wants to reference it as you go.
Great, thank you so much. We have on here also Choices 360 that every student in our district has access to. Families can go into the LHub, students can log into the LHub, and this gives information about doing some career planning, college and major planning, looking at careers, colleges that offer those careers, and as a senior, it has some information for scholarships. Again, there will be a link to this on that links page that's available on the website. The next slide we're going to be talking about as I get back to it is for PSAT, and I'd like to go on ahead and show you this page. This is the College Board website, collegeboard.org, and anything College Board related over the next 2 years, your student will need to access this website. And then we'll talk about this as soon as I get back to the presentation. There is a link that has information on how to see a sample score report for the PSAT, and it also has a video on there for understanding the PSAT scores. The reason why this is important, let me get back to the presentation here. Is because PSAT scores are going to be available starting on December 6th. So if your student took the PSAT this last fall in October, the scores are about to be available. So your student will need to access the College Board website to see those scores. They'll be available on that website, usually before they even tell us that they're available. So your student can log in, view the score report, access personalized SAT study practice through the Khan Academy, and also to register for the SAT and ACT, which likely they'll take this spring, or to register for the SAT, which they'll likely take this spring. Our National Merit Scholarship, our National Merit students are determined based on the PSAT that students took junior year this last October, and you can find out information about the National Merit Scholarship Program on page 24 in the Junior Senior Handbook. This is this is a scholarship search program for the students who are the highest performing students in the country. So there's some information that's available for that. Students who qualify for the National Merit Scholarship Program are notified of that through our campus in September of their senior year. Students must successfully pass the ELA 1, 2, Algebra 1 Biology, and U.S. History EOC exams to meet graduation requirements. Some students will have COVID exemptions if they were to take English 1, Algebra 1, or Biology during the spring of their freshman year. We just need to make sure that students know that they have to take all of their EOCs to graduate. Fall history students are going to take this test next week, and our spring U.S. history students and dual credit humanities students will take it on the week of May 3rd in the spring. Some students were virtual last school year and didn't come up to campus to take the test. So if your student this year falls into that category, they would have been notified today at the latest that they needed to come to campus to take the test next week. In advisory today, all students were to log in to a system and it told them where they needed to go. So if you ask your student, they'll be able to let you know if they're taking the test tomorrow for any of their additional classes. If the TEA makes any changes to tests, we notify everybody right away. But as of right now, everybody has to take the tests for graduation. It's about time to start thinking about senior schedule. Yes, we are about to start spring of junior year, but planning and registration will begin in January. We tell our students, and we will meet individually with our students this spring, and we will encourage them to take the most challenging classes as possible, but to also be realistic. If your students took AP classes and have always taken AP and honors classes, then by all means, please continue to take honors and AP classes. That shows the colleges that you're consistent and you're continuing to take strong courses. If your student has always taken on-level courses, you know what, that's just fine. Keep working on getting some A's and B's and show that your student is working really hard and again is staying consistent. A lot of times our seniors have time in their senior schedule because they've met so many of their graduation requirements that they're able to spread their wings a little bit and try out some classes at the Tech East and Tech West Center. This gives them an opportunity to try out some specific fields that they may have been interested in that haven't had a chance to yet before they get to college. Is your student interested in maybe studying medicine? Well, we have the principles of health science and medical terminology class that would be double blocked and give them an opportunity to make sure the medical field is where they want to go. Engineering, we have architecture, we have welding, manufacturing. There are all kinds of opportunities for students to see what direction they would like to go. We even have the cybersecurity program that's over there right now in the cybersecurity capstone. Technology is real strong right now, and it's pretty fantastic. There will be an open house at Tech East and Tech West. They usually do an open house early in the spring term. We will also have representatives from both campuses on campus early in the spring when we do registration. So we students will have an opportunity to talk to the counselors at the Career Center whenever they come over to our campus. For senior off, some students have an opportunity to take senior out. if they've met all of their graduation requirements and don't need to take any additional electives. Students that have acquired enough credits can do that, and they can have either first or fourth period out for the entire year, or they could do it for just one semester. We need to make sure that students know that they have to have reliable transportation, and so waiting in the library, in the cafeteria, or anywhere else on campus every day during their off period is not an option. And a signed parent consent form is definitely required to be able to have senior out. We always have some students as well who've met all of their graduation requirements and only need to do their core classes. So since we have accelerated block, they have an opportunity, students have an opportunity to graduate at mid-year. If a student has 22 credits at the end of junior year and can meet everything finished by this time their senior year, then graduating early is a consideration. Early graduates are not eligible to be valedictorian or salutatorian, so that's 2 students in the class that would not be able to do early graduation. And we also encourage students to talk with the college they would like to attend so that they can determine if early graduation will affect their enrollment status or financial aid or scholarships. And a good example of that is we've heard from a couple of campuses that have said that if a student is in early graduation and starts taking classes in the spring, they're considered a transfer student. So that means no freshman scholarships would be an opportunity for that particular student. However, graduating early gives some students an opportunity to work, to save up some money for school, to travel. Every family has a different story on why they would like to graduate early or why they want to continue on. Please feel free to speak with your counselor about that if that's something your student would like to do. All right, for college admissions tests, there's the SAT and the ACT, and those are our college admissions tests. The SAT test knowledge that's necessary for college success, such as reading, math, and writing, and the writing is optional on the SAT. We encourage students to find out from the colleges if they require the writing section. Not all colleges require it. Some colleges just use it for placement. But again, that's part of the college research process. Each section of the SAT is scored on a scale of 200 to 800 with the 2 writing subscores, and students will register for the SAT at collegeboard.org. For the ACT, it assesses general educational development, and it has multiple choice tests that cover English, math, reading, and science, science being unique to the ACT. And again, the writing test is optional, and students will register at actstudent.org. Now, our school offers a free college admissions test for students for one test. So students can either take the ACT or the ACT for free, for no charge, on campus during the school day. In the spring, junior year, that test is the ACT, and fall senior year, that test is the SAT. Again, students can only take one test at no charge on campus. So if your student wants to take the ACT this spring, it will be available for sure. Again, we recommend that students take either the ACT or the SAT by the end of their junior year.
Ms. Klingon?
Yes?
Can you see, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you see if you can unmute Dr. Robinson?
Let me see if I can get to that. If not, then Dr. Robinson, I know you're down the hallway. You're welcome to come in here too.
I think it just worked. Thank you.
Okay, yay. Okay, is there something you'd like to to discuss? Is there a screen I need to go back to? Nope, we're good. Okay. So right now I am on college admissions test dates. So students can register if they're planning on taking this on Saturdays. These are the test dates that are still available. Now there is an SAT test that's early in December, but we're even past the late registration deadline, so I didn't put the December test that was in here. So truly, if somebody is asking me a question on when they should take the test, my recommendation is that students should test their junior year as close to finishing their math class as possible. So if a student is taking Algebra 2 or Pre-Cal and have it in the fall, I would recommend doing the December test, or for the ACT February. If they're taking the test in the spring or taking the class in the spring, then I would recommend the May or June test dates for the SAT and the ACT. However, it's with test prep being the way that it is right now, where students can get onto Khan Academy and do all kinds of free test prep and ACT. There's online ACT study information as well. Your student will take the test whenever it feels right for your student and for your family. Make sure that you have the results to be sent to Hebron so that we can have the scores on file. It's when we look at records and have records, it's good to have those test scores on file. Our CEEB code is 441146. That's not a number anybody needs to memorize. Whenever you're registering for the test, it'll have where you can choose Hebron High School. We just ask that your student not pass over that question. As tests for possible credit, there are the SAT subject tests and AP exams. The SAT subject tests, some colleges will use it for course placement and to advise students for course selection, and they'll use it for admission into specific colleges and programs at their university, and into specific programs. If your student decides that they want to take the SAT subject test, then you'll want them to take that as soon as the course is completed for that subject, and you can get more information about the SAT subject tests on the College Board website. We have much more information about AP exams, which are given on campus here in May. The test dates are May 2nd through the 13th. And a student receives college credit or placement based on their exam score. There is a website that is on the links that you can take your student's college that they're looking to go to and put the AP test in there, and it will tell what your student's score is and what they will receive credit for that particular university. Another thing to remember about AP credit as well is that just because your student receives AP credit, the college or program that they are looking to attend may or may not have that student retake that class because of their major. And a good example of that is if your student is going to college to study chemistry, but took the AP chemistry test and scored a 5. If they're majoring in chemistry, then the school will want them to retake that credit as well. So a lot of times they'll take that credit and turn it into an elective rather than as, hey, this is chemistry credit. But that totally depends on the university, and it totally depends on your student. So it's important to have that conversation with the college for what is independent for your student. Okay, this next slide is in regards to dual credit. So I'm going to ask Dr. Robinson if she would pick up on this. Can you have access? Or did it mute you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As noted, I am Dr. Robinson, and I do college and career counseling around here. I did want to pick up on something that Mrs. Klingon said a moment ago. Sometimes if a student has AP exam credits and they got a 4 or a 5, certain institutions will say that the student has to earn a specific number of credits at that institution before the AP credit can get applied. However, we see this a lot with English, AP English scores. Students want to take sophomore level in college English, but the AP scores cannot be applied until the student actually earns the credit at the institution. So what can the student do? Well, most institutions have a policy where if students send official AP test scores in from College Board, as well as unofficial AP scores, their advisors can override the prerequisite, and then the AP test can kind of hang out until the student completes the credit at that institution themselves. So again, that's another finely nuanced question to ask these advisors if your student finds themselves in this situation. So dual credit. I know a bunch of y'all have kids that are probably in English 1301 and 1302 this fall, and then will be in history and English 1302 in the spring. So it's part 1 of dual credit humanities now, part 2 in the spring. In their senior year, students have 3 different options that they can take. The fall only option is a statistics class, Math 1342. That's paired with an independent study at Hebron. And that class will function as the core math requirement for students. Now, I want to warn y'all, majors are very particular about what math they want. If the student wants to go into the STEM fields, they're most likely going to need college algebra because that's the prerequisite for pre-calculus, which is the prerequisite for calculus, and so on and so forth. If the student wants to go into business, the typical math class that is advised is math for business and social science majors. So it's kind of like calculus, but an economics-based calculus. Math 1342 then is statistics, which is very, very applicable for students who want to go into nursing or the social sciences. If the student is very interested in the humanities, typically those departments don't care about the math in particular in terms of what type of math it is, but it's always wise to check with those institutions first before making the decision to do statistics. The other 2 options can be done in the fall or the spring, and they are English 4, which is Speech 1311, and English 2327. Those are paired together. The English counts for the language, philosophy, and culture requirement in the Texas core, and the speech counts for the final requirement in the core. On the other side, then, we have government and economics. Those both count for one of the 4 government and history classes the students have to take. The economics counts for the social and behavioral science classes. If the student is not interested in doing any one of those 5 options, then the student can speak with their counselor about doing concurrent classes. Those are classes that are outside of Hebron that are offered on the Collin College campus at a time when the student can do that. But they only earn college credit. They don't earn both dual credit and Collin credit. I would highly encourage y'all to really think if that's the option you want to pursue about whether or not you can make the time commitment for that class, and then think about whether or not that class will be truly beneficial. The process there always starts with a conversation with the high school counselor. So please, please, please start with your counselor. The first step, if you've never done dual credit before, is admission. The second step then is registration, and we have to complete that permission form. And the final thing I want to remind y'all about is that FERPA, the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, is a real thing. There is a way to waive that requirement, but the student has to go into their Cougar Web account and actually waive that requirement themselves. We really, really do believe that our dual credit students, even though they are high school students, age-wise, they truly are college students. And we see this as a time for students to develop their maturity and their self-advocacy in handling these college and career matters.
Dr. Robinson, would you mind continuing on with TSI?
Nope. So the TSI is similar to the SAT or the ACT, but it is offered by community colleges in the state of Texas as an entrance exam. It must be taken prior to enrollment in a Texas public college, university, or technical school, including students who want to do dual credit classes. Now, the TSI helps colleges determine if these students need to take developmental coursework prior to the regular coursework. If a student has never done dual credit previously and your kiddo graduates from college, they didn't take the SAT or the ACT or any AP, the state is going to need to see some type of an official test done by the student that demonstrates that they are ready for college level coursework. The reality is that there are math heavy classes and there are reading and writing heavy classes. Those are the two sides of any of these exams. If the student takes the PSAT and then gets into dual credit and completes a reading and writing intensive class, then they will not need to take the TSI, the SAT, or the ACT for that portion of classes. If they take the PSAT and do a dual credit math heavy class, so back to that statistics class, then they also, and pass the statistics, they would also not need to take or prove SAT, ACT, or TSI for math classes because they have shown that they are college level for that type of subject. The reality is that a lot of students don't take that math class, and so they need to show passing SAT, ACT, or TSI scores for math. The other side of this then is that if the student gets a certain score on the ACT or the SAT, as demonstrated on this slide, they get waived out of that or exempted from that portion of the TSI. If they don't make that score that's necessary, then they do have to take that portion of the TSI or all of it, depending on how the student did. The PSAT waives the TSI requirement while the student is in high school, but it's not a full exemption because the student doesn't get to get out of that after high school. So it waives the need for the TSI through high school. Upon high school graduation, the testing standards come back on. So I would just make sure that y'all probably by the end of junior year or the summer, make plans to either take the TSI or make sure that that SAT or ACT has been taken and that scores are on their way.
And for seniors, we offer the TSI on campus. If a student is taking the college prep math class, it's available in the fall. And we let students know also we have more students who will take it in the spring right before graduation. TSI, Texas Success Initiative. If a student is planning on going out of state, of course, they don't necessarily need the TSI. So that's why we have a lot of students who wait to do that as part of the placement process in college. And a lot of students don't realize they have to do it until after they've been accepted into their school. So it's good to think about it this summer, junior year, but we have some opportunities that follow later also.
Mrs. Klingen, I'd also like to mention that the TSI can be taken online or in person from any of the College campuses. It's more expensive to do it online, but the student can do it from the convenience of their own home. If the students only need to take one part of the TSI, unfortunately, they still have to pay for the entire thing. It doesn't price out per type of exam. If y'all have any other questions about that, I'm happy to speak with you after this presentation or during this week.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. It's time, juniors, to start the college search. If you have not started it already, it's time to start pinpointing and narrowing down those options and where your student's thinking about going. There are virtual college panels that will be online. They've been doing them fairly regularly, but I haven't heard of any yet this spring. A college panel is where college representatives will get together and speak in front of a group of people, in front front of an audience and they will answer questions. As soon as I get some forms, as soon as we have some forums available, we will post that and make sure that everybody knows to sign up for it. We will also have the spring college fair here on campus. It is set back up again. It will be on January 26th of 2022. That's the day of the spring open house, and we will be at the we'll be over in the HAC. In the athletic center over there. So colleges are already signing up. We have 40 schools already signed up for it. So we hope that everybody will be able to come and do some research there. Also, please, you can set up either as an individual or with your family to speak with Dr. Robinson, and she will talk to you about some schools and opportunities there as well. Again, check out Choices 360 for some major options, and that will help your student to narrow down some potential colleges that have majors of their interest. It's time to start doing some college visits as well. Juniors have, and the date of the college fair again is on January 26th of 2022, 1/26/22. Students are allowed 2 days for college visits during their junior year, and they get 2 days senior year. Unused days don't carry over. So if the 2 days off campus junior year aren't used, you can't roll those over. If your student is going to go on a college visit, let the attendants know. It's a great way to experience the campus, and some good times to go are spring break, summer break, and at college hosted preview days. The downside to going during spring break and summer break is because the students are gone, and the college hosted preview days, they're great because you get all that school spirit and rah-rah, shish boom bah, and all of that. But if you go during the week, you're able to see the school as it functions on a regular day. So that's why we have the days that are during the school year. These days count as being like on a field trip. It doesn't count for or against attendance at all. Attendance will need a letter from the college on the letterhead stating that your student was there for a visit, and it needs to be signed by the college official. I can tell you that when you're on an official visit on a campus, they'll hand you a folder and information that already has it in there. So the schools are used to providing that information. That's a standard thing. It's a great idea to go during the school year, during the school day, to see the schools as they function.
I also think if y'all go and you do take this seriously, that y'all will get a pretty good idea pretty quickly while you're on the campus if that's a school that you would want to attend or if your kiddo would want to attend. Most people I talk to say that those campus visits allow them to eliminate at least one institution from their list and help them understand that there are at least two that the student is really, really interested in.
Now, some of these campuses are a little bit further away, and you can't just hop in your car and go for a one-day visit. So this is just a couple of local campuses that have representatives in the area. There is a group that's called the Dallas Area Representative Network, DARN, and they have members from all over the country who have representatives in Dallas. But these are some ones that are in regular contact with us. So if your student wants to go to LSU and you can't just pop in the car and go to Baton Rouge, they will meet with you in a local area and talk to you about their university. Again, this is just a couple of them. Many, many, many campuses have representatives in the DFW area. All right, now when you're looking at colleges, there are lots of college admissions plans. There are non-restrictive application plans and restrictive application plans. So non-restrictive would be a regular decision, rolling admission, and early action. That just means that you can apply to multiple colleges and you don't have to worry about being committed to one until you get your decisions. The restrictive action plans, however, are just as they say, restrictive. So early decision, restrictive early action. Those are ones that if you know you want to go somewhere, you're signing up and saying that if you're accepted to that particular school, you're going to withdraw all other applications. For some reason this fall, I've heard from a couple of students who thought that just because their early decision school was out of state, that overrode, anything, and then they could apply to all the in-state schools they could. That's not the case. If your student signs up to do a restrictive early action or an early decision and they're accepted at those schools, then they have to withdraw their other applications to the schools. So make sure to do the research, and you're also only allowed to do one. Isn't that right, Dr. Robinson? You're only allowed to apply to one early decision and one restrictive early action. You're not allowed to put a whole bunch of those on there. Yeah, so those were the odd questions that I had received this fall that for whatever reason those stories were out there. So do some research and make sure that that's something that your student wants to do. They're committed to commit to those schools.
The restrictive application plans typically cost more than your normal application plan, or your non-restrictive, I should say. They typically happen a little bit earlier as well. And if the student does end up saying no to a restrictive plan and then wants to transfer back into that institution at a later point in time, the student will most likely get a no from that university. Also, the money will be forfeited for that university. So they do take that pretty seriously as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Robinson, one of the questions in the chat I think would be a good one for you to answer at this point. It says, why would a student apply for early action? What's the benefit?
So I did early action, as did my husband. We met at our university, and I knew that was where I wanted to go. And I knew that if they said yes to me, I would say yes to them, and I was willing to say no to the 4 other institutions I applied for. My husband knew that he only wanted to go to that institution. He had a killer GPA, amazing class rank, really great service hours. He was fairly confident he was going to get in, and so he did early action for one institution. Now, for him, that was kind of a big swing and could have been a big miss. And we laugh and we think, man, he probably should have applied to more schools, but he really did know that that's where he wanted to go. And so that was what he wanted to do. But again, we both had to be very confident that we would say yes if they said yes to us, and that we would be willing, again, to say no to those other institutions that we had applied for, even if we had gotten amazing scholarships and amazing opportunities at those other institutions.
So by doing early action and early decision, you are telling them, or excuse me, by doing a restrictive action, you are telling the school, you are where I want to be. I'm putting all of my eggs in your basket. Take me, take me, take me. And that's saying that that's where you want to go. And they know that they're putting you up at the top of the list, right?
Yes. And Mrs. Bradley just asked if there was a competitive edge by applying that way. And I don't necessarily think it would necessarily be competitive. I just think that is signaling to that institution that you desperately want to go to that institution, that is your top priority. The applicant pool also may be a little bit more competitive in the sense that that student is also going to be competing with students who really also want to go there.
Okay, so speaking of applications, most applications are available around July 1st. Some in August, but a lot of the schools that I've heard from and talked to, they have a July 1st opening for their applications. Their deadlines are later, but that's when it comes available. If your student is planning on going to school in Texas, then they can use goapplytexas.org for the application. And this is for Texas public colleges, community private schools. And it also has a scholarship application for schools that are participating in that scholarship. application. The Common App is another big program that we see, and this is www.commonapp.org, and it's accepted by over 500 institutions in the United States. It used to be that not a whole lot of schools in Texas were using it, but now I've seen Texas Tech is on it. I've seen University of North Texas on it. I've seen a lot more schools utilizing Common App. They still use Apply Texas. They still use sometimes their own personal application, but they have an application available in Common App. Third one that I see is the Coalition. It's not quite as often used, but you will see a Coalition for the application as well. But most of the applications that I see are from Apply Texas and from Common App. Make sure that you check the specific college websites for additional instructions. We're starting to run a little bit tight on time, so if I push through some of these slides, please remember that the presentation will be in the presentation, all the slides and everything will be posted tomorrow morning, and I believe it's already on there right now. That in that previous slide where it said the top 10%, I'm getting to that. Students who are in the top 10% of their graduating class are eligible for automatic admission to any public university in the state of Texas. So in order to do that, a student must graduate from the public or private school, graduate on the foundation plan with DLA, enroll no more than 2 years from graduating from high school, and submit the application to the Texas Public University. Some students think that because they're in top 10%, they get automatic admission, but they forget that they still have to complete their application. So just because your student is in top 10%, that doesn't mean that their name goes to every college and they're automatically in. They still have to go through the application process. They still have to submit their scholarship applications because scholarships aren't necessarily related to top 10%. They still have to submit their SAT and ACT scores. And from what I've heard, some of the schools that are SAT and ACT optional, they are still requiring their students with top 10% to submit their SAT and ACT scores. So sometimes that's for TSI exemption, et cetera, other reasons. Again, every school is different. Make sure you're looking at the school's websites and talking to their admissions offices. So that saying that if you're top 10% that you have to submit your application, it's because you still have to submit your application if you're top 10%. Now, Senate Bill 175, this is the one that UT Austin, they are able to limit their automatic admissions to 75% of their enrollment. So many students who were in top 10% wanted to go to UT, but they didn't have enough places for that to be. So every year in September, we're notified of what percent is automatic admission for the University of Texas at Austin. And for the class of 2023, that is the top 6% of the graduating class gets automatic admission into the University of Texas, and with the remaining places to be filled through holistic review. Holistic review means that they're going to look at resume, at transcript, at test scores, at essays, at recommendation letters. Another thing to remember about that automatic admission, it sounds fantastic and it's really great, but automatic admission to the university does not mean automatic admission into their school of choice. I'll give a good example of that. I had a good friend whose son was in the top 4% of the graduating class, wanted to go to the School of Business, but at that point in time at UT, they were only taking students in the top 3% of the graduating class, along with some extra things that they had to do on top of that. So he was accepted into UT, but he was going to have to be in liberal arts in order to go to the university. So just because it's admission into top 10% doesn't mean it's admission into the major of choice. So that's another thing to talk to the admissions program about. whenever you're talking to the schools for admission. The CAP program is another alternative way to get into the University of Texas, and that's the Coordinated Admissions Program. That is where some of the universities in the University of Texas system can feed into, so you get accepted into the CAP program, and then after 2 years, the student gets automatic admission into the University of Texas. But that program has gotten so popular now that the CAP program is only available at 4 of the feeder universities, and they no longer accept students in the business program or the engineering program. They are only looking for students who are looking to do liberal arts. So if the CAP program is where you end up going, again, make sure it's the major. They accept the major that they want, that your student wants to go into. Some people just want to, you know, throw the Longhorns and I'm going to wear burnt orange. But is it where you want to go and what you want to do, or are you studying the major that you want to study? It's important as part of the research project to make sure that you're doing that. Okay, so for essays, the main thing that I want students to remember for writing their essays is that this is where you're putting in information that cannot be found in the application. So when your student is writing their essay, this is not the time to say, I took 5 AP classes and got scores of 5. Yeah, they can get that from your application. They can get that from your test scores. You're trying to give information that is not just readily available. You're trying to sell yourself to the college admissions committee. And for recommendation letters, the number one thing that I want students to remember for recommendation letters is, well, 2 things. One is give your counselor and your recommender some information about you that, again, we can't get from your transcript. But 2, we need time to be able to write these recommendation letters for your student. We request that students give us 2 weeks to write their recommendations, and that's really important to keep in mind here during the holidays. The recommendation packet is available 24/7, 365 on the Hebron Counseling website. You can print a copy of it out or save it because it's a PDF and handwrite everything on there on your notes app and send it to your counselor. But again, we request 2 weeks to be able to get those letters. A good example today happens to be the deadline for, it's the December 1st deadline for UT and A&M. And last night I received 2 recommendation letter requests for students with a deadline of today to submit their recommendation letters. Luckily there was time to be able to produce that, but that's not a whole lot of time, and it's pretty inconsiderate for your student to ask for a student to ask for a person to write a thoughtful recommendation letter on the same day that it's due. So 2 things to remember. 1 is be thorough with the information, give us some things that we can write about, and 2, please be considerate of time. I have on here to provide a stamped envelope with the address. Most colleges and scholarships now have digital submissions. I've received 1 request that needed an envelope this year, and some of the other counselors may have received 1 or 2 also, but it's been minimal. Almost everything is online now. So when your student is looking for recommendation letters on where to send things, look for a digital submission to share with us also. Resumes. Many colleges and scholarships are requiring a resume. It's a good idea to start having a resume now. These are living documents, so they're constantly being changed and adjusted. Start the resume now. There is a link in that links page that has how to start a resume and what it should look like. As a junior, more than likely, we're talking about a little one-pager right now that has a list of clubs and organizations and maybe a job or two that your student has had. But every time there's an award or a volunteer experience or something, then add that to it, because those little things that we've done, we forget about. So if you have that living document where you're putting in some volunteer work, then that document will be created and it'll be ready to go. For ordering transcripts, counselors do not handle transcripts. They come from our registrar and they are all digital now. So they're requested online through ScribOrder, and the website is, again, a link on the page. It's scriborder.com. And many of them are online. If a stamped addressed envelope is required, your registrar will contact you to let you know what's needed. Every student gets 5 free transcripts, and each additional transcript is $5. Unofficial transcripts are available in Skyward under the Portfolio tab, and they are available right now. So they are updated in Skyward approximately 2 weeks after each 9 weeks ends. So you don't have to wait for your counselor to say, hey, can you send me a copy of the transcript? No, you can access it 24/7. As long as Skyward is up and running, you can access the Portfolio tab and see the most recent transcript. Financial aid. This is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. The state of Texas has a new graduation requirement that started this year. So your juniors, for senior year, this will be the second year that the state will have this as a requirement. Every student has to address every family has to address the FAFSA prior to graduation. And that means whenever I say address it, it means you either need to fill it out on fafsa.ed.gov, or there's an opt-out form in Skyward that will be available in August of your student's senior year. Again, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, every parent and the student have to have an FSA ID number, and that information is also a link on the page. The reason why a lot of students and families have not completed the FAFSA is they think, oh, well, I'm not going to get any money from this anyway. So they just go on ahead and pay for college all on their own. The thing to remember, though, is that even though you may not qualify for the grants, there's always the Parent Plus loan that everybody, even Bill Gates, would qualify for eligibility for that one. But the universities have to have the filing of the FAFSA in order to offer, merit-based scholarships through the university. So the state's made everybody address it and acknowledge that that's a thing, because so many people have been leaving money on the table. Merit-based scholarships, that's not need-based scholarships. This is based on performance. So whenever it comes time for the FAFSA in October of senior year, just have that in your mind that that's something that you have to address. And that's a family decision on if you are going to fill it out or not. But I would strongly encourage you to either do it or consider doing that. We will have a financial aid night your senior year, at the beginning of senior year. And we also bring several representatives from universities and colleges to campus to help families to complete the FAFSA. And that's not a, hey, I'm from Collin College or UNT and you need to come to us and this is the money that we'll do. No. That is just people who are coming to campus to help you to complete that information and to answer your questions, even if you're not ready to submit right there. There are lots and lots and lots of scholarships that are out there, and most of the scholarships that are available right now are for seniors, but there are some that juniors can apply for, and even as young as sophomores and freshmen, but most of them are for seniors, and that process is for seniors. But it's a good idea to start taking a look at what's out there. There's, again, on that links page, there are some links to some different scholarship searches, but the ones that I really want to point out are fastweb.com is one of the world's largest databases of scholarships. So students can log on there. That would be one that I would go to as a junior to start looking at scholarships that are available because they roll over year after year. And then the other one I'd like to point out is at the very bottom, and that's the Louisville Education Foundation scholarship application that's available starting in November of senior year. And that's for scholarships through Louisville ISD. And Miss Rayford can tell us or post in the chat on what the total was, but it was a lot of money, like multiple thousands of dollars that were given last year for scholarships through Louisville ISD. It was a substantial amount of money. All right, athletes for NCAA eligibility, please contact your coach if your student is thinking about doing college athletics. There are some steps that the NCAA has their students do, starting preferably at the end of sophomore year, but we usually hear from students who are starting it during junior year, and there's a whole process to be able to do that. So if your student is a potential NCAA Division I or II athlete, please speak with your counselor or your coach to get started on that process right away. We're in the middle of junior year now. There are military academies as an option for students. Any student who's interested in going to one of the military academies, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, any of the academies should start working on that as soon as January 31st of their junior year, and they would need to send a written request for application to the state senator or representative in order to get a recommendation letter by the end of junior year. Please speak with your counselor. We can help your student get in touch with the representative in the academies that we need to, if that's what needs to be. Attending the military is also an option for many of our students. Last year with the COVID, we did not have our representatives on campus, but the recruiters are now back on campus and visiting during lunch. So I would encourage your student to speak with one of the representatives from Air Force, Army, Marines, National Guard, or Navy. And also we offer the ASVAB on campus 2 times a year. We did the ASVAB in the fall, and we will offer it again in March. The ASVAB is a test for potential military jobs, but it's not just that. It's a fantastic test for career aptitude. There's a place where you can opt out on it, so your student wouldn't be recruited or contacted by someone from the military to discuss the results. But it's just an all-around really good ability test as well. So if that's something your student is interested in, then please feel free to sign up for that. I actually do the registration for that, and it'll be coming out in January. It's important to remember to be prepared. We are here to help your students and provide support and resources. But we need your student to give us a direction. If your student says, hey, I'm ready to go to Harvard, then we can say, all right, this is the direction you need to go to start to have that to be a thing. So making a goal, being ready to start, having a direction is fantastic. Ultimately, the responsibility for preparing falls on your students, but we're here to support you along the way.
Can I also say something to that? Families, this might feel like a very overwhelming process. It might be a lot of information. I promise you, if you take it one baby step at a time, one piece at a time, by the time that the student has to make the decision about not only going to college, but which college the student wants to attend, the pathway will align itself and work itself out. It just is going to take your student working on it little bits at a time, daily and weekly, but you will get there. You will.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time and for coming in. We are going to stay online and answer any questions because I know there are thousands of of them that have come up. This is super overwhelming, and that's one of the reasons we want to have this meeting so early, is so that you can have some time to process all this instead of having it all come at you right at the start of senior year. There is a short questionnaire that's also going to be posted in the chat. So if you don't mind, please complete that as well. And I have the contact information for the counselors. I apologize to Dr. Fields. I just see that I left the E out of his name, so I will adjust that and then re-get the links back up there. We really appreciate your time coming today. Have any questions come up that we can share to the group as we close?
Good job, Ms. Klingon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good job, Dr. Robinson.
She did fantastic.
You did.
Thank you,
Oh,
everybody,
I
for
think
coming.
she's-
We really
I think she's
appreciate it. We know this
muted
is so much. So I see that somebody has on there, how would we know if our student is eligible for early graduation? We are about to have the individual conferences with our students, or contact with our students on what they need for graduation. And that information would be discussed with your student. You can contact your counselor now and we can take a look at that. Or you can have your student come in and ask that question, or we can wait until January and ask that question at the conference. For requesting recommendation letters, if the process starts in July, start the application and then you can request it from the counselor. And one of the reasons why I say not to ask for that now is because like let's say UT does not require a counselor recommendation. So you don't want to ask the counselor to provide that recommendation until they know that that's something that's needed. Not every college requires the recommendation, so you usually wait until until the applications start. We usually start our recommendation letters in August or September of senior year. So really, yeah, even though the process starts in July, asking for it in early August would be a better bet.
Someone's asking, does something happen through the counselor? Do you want to clarify that question, or did you already
What do you mean,
answer
does something
that
happen
question,
through the
Kim?
counselor?
And in the chat, it says, does that happen through the counselor?
Is it talking about the
I was just
recommendation
asking the
letter?
person.
Oh,
I
Not
think they were
sure.
referring to early graduation, and I think we answered
Okay.
that.
Okay, good.
gotcha. Class rank comes out at the end of each 9 weeks. So this will be probably, it's usually 2 weeks after the 9 weeks ends. Mid-January is going to be the best bet. And actually they post it in y'all's Skyward accounts before they even tell us that it's ready to be posted. So you may know that it's there before we do, but check Skyward 2 weeks after grades post.
And if it's not there exactly 2 weeks after, please be patient, because LISD is doing class updating of rank for all of the high schools. So sometimes it may be a little bit longer than 2 weeks.
Right. So if one of the high schools is having some kind of issue, they post all of our ranks at the same time. So all 5 high schools have to be ready before they post. 2 weeks is just that general time. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, it is super short. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, all right, I'm going to shut the meeting down. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to contact your counselor. And again, I will post the video in the morning. It takes a while for the system to process it, and I'll get the updated contacts for the counselors on there as well. As for the free test, there will be a registration process that comes through for the ACT and SAT. It comes directly to families. That's how your student chooses to take it. They say, I want to take this one. So some students didn't do either of them. They only took the tests on Saturdays. But the free test is available, and that will come through. You're welcome. Okay, we really appreciate your time, and I won't keep you any longer. We're now past the hour, so we really appreciate you. All right, have a good evening, everybody.